Hey guys, it's Chris and welcome back to another Witcher Season 2 video. That's right, The Witcher Season 2 is just around the corner and Netflix has dropped a few clips as well as a new Season 2 trailer. They named it The Road to Season 2. That kind of slipped by me for a day or so. But before we get started, if you're new here, we will be covering The Witcher 2 just like we covered The Witcher 1, as well as many other shows coming out later this year, as we lead up to House of the Dragon next year as well. For those Ice and Fire nerds or Game of Thrones fans, we're going back into Westeros, so I'm really excited about it. Hope it helps us heal a little bit from the ending of Game of Thrones Season 8. But anyway, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel as not to miss anything. And if you like the video, please slap a like on it as well and leave me a comment in the comments below. Also, if you're new here or just are not aware yet, I have written a book. It is a medieval fantasy book called The Crimson Gods. It is available for pre-order now on Amazon and everywhere else books are sold. So if you like medieval fantasy with a little bit of dark fantasy mixed in there as well, consider pre-ordering The Crimson Gods. I really appreciate all you guys who have already. We actually hit #1 new release in the medieval category for a few days, so I really appreciate everybody who has pre-ordered already. But anyway, let's jump into these clips and the trailer for The Witcher Season 2. The first clip here, we have a look at Nivellen. Now, I talked about this in my Witcher trailer video, the first one, where basically this is going over a short story called A Grain of Truth. So I won't go into in-depth detail there. I'll leave that link in the description below. But we see Nivellen here finally, which I talked about in the first video. And by the way, he is played by Christopher Hivju, who played Tormund's Giantsbane in Game of Thrones. So it looks like they're changing the story up a bit as far as the timeline, but essentially this is a darker retelling of Beauty and the Beast, where Geralt comes across this man named Nivellen who is cursed, and that's why he looks like a beast. He's cursed for what he's done in the past. Although he is very sorry for it, he is actually a pretty good guy. But Geralt feels like something odd is going on with this particular lady he lives with. But in this scene, it looks like they've been old friends for a while, and maybe they're going to extend this out to where, you know, this happens over a longer period of time than the short story, because in the short story, it was just a couple of days. So either way, they're sitting around talking about it, and actually Nivellen says something about witchers being turned into monsters to kill other monsters. And at this point, Ciri is with Geralt. That's the difference between this and the actual short story, is it's a little bit of a different timeline. Ciri is not with Geralt when this happens in the books. So pretty cool to see Nivellen here, played by Tormund Giantsbane. This is one of my favorite short stories in the books before we get to the novels. And then we move over to the second clip, and we have Geralt waking Ciri up, telling her to get the hell out of Dodge if he doesn't walk out of the house, because there is a Bruxa in the house. Now, it looks like this second clip is going to be taking place right after the first, probably that night, where Ciri is actually with him in the house, and this is going to be the difference between this and the books. And that's what Geralt sensed was going on with this lady that Nivellen's living with. She is actually a Bruxa, which is a type of higher vampire that can only be affected by silver and a couple other things, but is not affected by the sun. Now, of course, Ciri in this clip doesn't know what's going on yet. She's not familiar with all the monsters and all the things Geralt does as a Witcher. This is likely on their way to Kaer Morhen. And as you can see here, during this little A Night to Remember cinematic trailer for the Witcher games, this is what a Bruxa looks like when she's not posing as a beautiful young lady. And we move into the Road to Season 2 trailer itself. Now, this has a lot of footage from Season 1 kind of intermingled with it. Matter of fact, the majority of it is from Season 1, so we won't go over all that. But essentially, it's more like a recap where, you know, this is why Nilfgaard invaded Cintra, because of Ciri, because of her powers. She has what's called Elder Blood, otherwise known as Elven Blood. And as a matter of fact, her real name is Ziriel, which is Elven for Cirilla, and of course it's Ciri for short. So it's kind of a recap of what's going on in the main story, how he got her via the Law of Surprise, which I explained last year as well in other videos. There will be a Witcher playlist linked in the video description below. But essentially what we see is Geralt taking Ciri to Kaer Morhen. This is the Witcher School, or the School of the Wolf, that had been sacked. And we see our first look at Vesemir, otherwise known as Uncle Vesemir, because as Ciri gets to know him and grows up here learning to be a Witcher herself, although she is not going to undergo the Trial of the Grasses, the thing that gives them their Witcher-like eyes, she's trying to learn what the hell is going on in this world, how to become a Witcher, what Kaer Morhen is, who all these Witchers are, and at the same time she's trying to understand herself, what kind of power she has, because she knows she has some kind of power, but she certainly has no idea how to control it. And that's the same issue that Geralt and Vesemir and the other Witchers here are going through as well, as they're trying to understand what she is, who she is, and also trying to protect her at the same time from her own power. And good old Vesemir, I think he looks pretty damn good. And of course, most of us video game nerds who played The Witcher 3 are used to that Vesemir. He looks pretty similar as he's described in the books as well. So I'm digging the look here of Vesemir. He's going to be the older Witcher. He's the oldest surviving Witcher, as a matter of fact. So he has, you know, all the knowledge. He's kind of looked upon as a father figure to Geralt and the other Witchers. So it's going to be really cool to see Vesemir and Geralt's relationship as well as they get to know Ciri and she learns the ways of the Witcher. We see a little montage of Ciri training where she's going to learn to be a Witcher, but as I mentioned before, she will not undergo the Trial of the Grasses. There's no need for that, and they can't do it anymore, which they'll probably get into as well. So we're going to see her going through this montage of training, learning what the hell is going on, what is this place, who am I, what kind of powers do I have, how can I harness those powers, because trust me, once she gets to know herself and her powers, she will not need any Trial of the Grasses because she's one bad motherfucker. We see clips of Jaskier, or otherwise known as Dandelion, from the books as well. He will be in the show. They don't show a lot of him here in this trailer, but Jaskier will always be in The Witcher throughout different storylines with Geralt as well. So we do see him here for a quick clip. And then, of course, we go to Yennefer of Vengerberg. And Geralt actually mentions this as well when somebody's talking about him, asking, you know, you spent all this time alone. What changed you? And he says Yennefer of Vengerberg. So, of course, we get the little montage from Season 1 where Yennefer changes her appearance, becomes beautiful and all that from being a hunchback. And they are truly in love, although there is some complication with Triss Merigold and other storylines, but I don't think they're going to bring that in here. And eventually, Ciri will get to meet Yennefer as well, and they will all become kind of like a dysfunctional family, although there are always complications when you're dealing with Geralt of Rivia. Now, most of this other footage is from Season 1 where she had the battle with Nilfgaard, but we do see the clip of her waking up next to the tree where she did survive the battle. And Fringilla is there. Remember, Fringilla went to Nilfgaard where Yennefer was originally supposed to go before she made herself beautiful and appealed to the king. So Fringilla and Yennefer will always have this little rivalry going on because basically she took her place and nobody wanted to go to Nilfgaard. So we see a little more new footage from Season 2 as well where Fringilla and Yennefer get captured. And then we cross back over to Ciri as well where she's talking about monsters do bad things to people, but somebody else tells her, which may be Triss's voice, I'm not quite sure here, humans do bad things to everybody, which again goes back to the core of the whole entire story. This is kind of what Geralt represents. He carries a regular steel sword for men and a silver sword for monsters, but the core of the story, the message here is that men are the real monsters, and monsters are created from the deeds of evil men. And the rest is essentially another montage from the monsters from Season 1, kind of hammering in the theme here of monsters are created by the deeds of evil people. I think the monsters will look a little bit better this year as well. I did have a problem with some of the monsters last year, but I'm sure they have a bigger budget. I'm sure the monster would look a hell of a lot better. And by the way, speaking of The Witcher and Geralt himself, I did a video during The Witcher Season 1 about the signs, and hopefully we'll see Geralt use more magical signs as well this year. But I'll link that video in the description below that explains all the basic Witcher signs, what they do, and how they're used, because I really want to see Geralt use more magic this year, especially Igni. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, thank you for all the support, and a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers and everybody on Patreon as well, as we try to revive this channel and get back in this new YouTube algorithm. Again, thank you to everyone who's pre-ordered the Crimson Gods. I will leave those links in the description below as well, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.